You know, so many people don't know your background, like like us guys that have known you for a lot of years. They don't realize that there's obviously the connection, and you're a full instructor and a student under Guru Dan. But you know, you put a lot of things in your game, as we all try to do as JKD students. But your background in wrestling, obviously, jiu-jitsu, Kali, Silat. Maybe if you could take just a minute just to talk a little bit about your background there, and how you've implemented things to where you are now.
Yeah, we've we always look at our stuff, and what we do is we say truly mixed martial arts, because right now, if you look at what mixed martial arts is, it takes a small facet of what really is out there. It takes elements of striking, primarily from Thai boxing, wrestling, maybe some elements of judo, and then on the ground it's a lot of submission wrestling and jiu-jitsu. But ever since we met Guru Dan, he's always been at the forefront and pretty much introduced every one of those arts initially to the United States. I mean, Thai boxing and the friendship he had with Achan, and how that developed into the Thai Box Association USA and passing out there, the Filipino martial arts, Savat, Shudo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, you name it, any phase of functional martial art that's been out there, Guru Dan has been a big part of that beginning and the growth of it. And so I've always had that mentality that you can take anything from any one of those things and put it right into the most functional stuff. And we do that all the time with our mixed martial arts. I'm using elements of Filipino Kali all the time, the footwork, the angling, the whole mentality, 3-for-1 concept. I mean, all those things that are inherent in Kali and the empty hands there, we put into our Thai boxing game. The Zhen Fa martial arts with all the trapping and all the the sensitivity from like Wing Chun, that's constantly being used on the ground. And one thing with the trapping on the ground, the person can't go anywhere, so they're stuck to the ground. So now the trapping really works.
More
effective.
Punch
somebody, it's way more effective because they can't jump away now, and so they're stuck there. So they have to put their hands up there. When they do, there's Pak Sao. They block with the other hand. There's Lap Sao. There's the pin. So you just can totally see where all this stuff fits in when a person can't move. And obviously that was the whole premise to it. When you're at such a crowded place and you had to fight really close to another person, there's where Wing Chun and that mentality really starts to pay off. And the whole sensitivity part of it, you don't really realize how often you're using that. All those years of Chi Sao and Huba and all that, and next thing you know, you're in jiu-jitsu and you're trying to get to a collar and the guy's blocking you. You come up with the other hand and you feel him push, or you go around it, and you're not allowing him to get to your collar because you're just sticking to his hand, and all that stuff is finding its way in almost everything we do. And without even thinking about it, we're always applying those things into what we do right now in just the confines of mixed martial arts. The elements of off balancing and misalignment of the body that we find in Silat. A lot of those things are found in wrestling as well. Wrestling is a very technical art, and obviously if something off balances somebody, it's probably been used in wrestling as well. And there's a lot of elements that come into play. I remember, just for an instance, the first time Guru Dan showed Puder Kapala, and everyone was like, "Ooh, wow!" And I was like, "That's kind of like a three-quarter Nelson in wrestling. The guy shoots on your leg, you stuff him, put him on his back." And I thought, well, that's just kind of a modification off of that. And so, but then obviously with the application and how you can apply it with the heating and everything else, that made it, obviously another avenue. And it's really funny because right now, as my son starts to wrestle, he's 9 years old, I'm putting elements that I've learned since I've wrestled into his wrestling game, and he's pulling off stuff that people are like, what was that? I said, well, it's old school wrestling. It's what they used to do, and it's been kind of taken out of the arts. And so it's really funny how right now, how the submission wrestling and the even the mixed martial arts is changing wrestling again, and more people are coming back and doing chicken wings and stuff that they didn't really think about before. People are sweeping and doing different tricks, And I throw that into the kids' games all the time right now. And so it's really funny how what we did and we developed, and after even I wrestled, I learned all this stuff. And I always say, man, if I would have known even a quarter of the things that I know, an eighth of the things that I know right now, and brought them back to when I was wrestling, man, that would have made such a huge difference in my wrestling game. And so by learning the Filipino martial arts and the Junfan martial arts and the Savat and the Silat, Kabit Kabong, the Thai boxing, you just go down the list, and how each one of those arts has specific elements and attributes that are developed and how they all intermix and fit into the big final picture. It's amazing. And, in each one of us coming from different backgrounds, we'll look at them all a little bit different. So all of a sudden you go somewhere who's developed under Guru Dan almost the same amount of time you have, and it comes up and it's an entirely different, art. It's like, wow, look at this. I never even thought of that kind of thing. And that's the beauty of, ultimately, Jeet Kune Do and what Bruce Lee was talking about, hey, once you have a base, then it's up to you. You fill it in, and it should be like as many 6 billion styles, because that's ultimately, everybody moves a little bit differently and they have a different flavor, and man, that's the beauty of it.
It's like my Jeet Kune Do is not your Jeet Kune Do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's
Great.
100% sure.